Size of face. Good to go? All right. Nope, try not to. I'm a little nervous, so I might pace. But yeah, so there's a mix up in the program. I'm doing the newbies perspective on pen testing. So my apologies if you looked at the program and that's not the talk you're here to hear, but it's what I'm given. So a little bit about myself. My name is Brandon Edmunds. I'm a father, a husband. I'm a longtime student. I'm a full-time penetration tester. I've been penetration testing for the last 6 months, which is really the crux of this talk, right? I'm here not giving out new code, not giving out new hacks. I'm just giving a perspective of what I've learned in the industry in the last 6 months. I still have plenty to learn. I'm not an expert by any means. I've learned a lot in the last 24 hours, as I'm sure many of you have. So why give a talk if I don't have years of pen testing experience? I'm not releasing new code. What am I up here doing? And my hope is that by giving my story, putting out my perspective, it encourages newcomers. Maybe you're in security and you've always thought about the pen testing industry and you think, man, I want to really explore that. I hope this talk encourages you to do so. And if you've been in the industry for a while, you are a pen tester, when you're in the ditches, you kind of get calloused over to some of the problems. So I'm hoping that my perspective brings some of that fresh eyes. We can bring to light some of the issues we know that are out there, and maybe build that bridge to start to resolve some of those. So this was me 6 months ago. I was a security administrator. I was thankful for the work. I liked the work, but I saw this job rec. This is the actual line from the job rec that I read at my company, and it just yelled in that like hacker heart of mine, wow, yeah, I'm in. Let's hack a car. Let's hack an ATM. Let's do that. So I threw in my resume. I interviewed. I talked to the guys that worked there. They offered me a position, and here we are 6 months later, where reality has set in. All right, I haven't hacked any ATMs. I haven't hacked any cars. You see on the movies the click and bone. You're in. We take over all your base belongs to me. It's not necessarily what happens every day, and we run into things like not having enough resource allocation to really do what we want to do. And when we're when we're with a client, when we're working, we're trying to find those vulnerabilities. Sometimes you just don't have enough time. To reiterate a little bit, one of my favorite movies is Antitrust. If you've seen it, the guy walks into this major software company, and the big hack scene, he sits at this daycare machine and he hits a few keystrokes and he's in and he owns everything. But as I said, that doesn't necessarily happen occasionally. The industry throws us an MS 0867 and we get opponent owned, but in most cases, even it's not over there. You begin to pivot, you begin to dig deeper in the network, you begin to look for more. So it's not just that walk in and I'm done. There's a lot more painstaking work involved. And we're at an unfair advantage as pen testers. We're given in a limited amount of time, a limited amount of resources. We come in with 40, 80 hours to hack up your network. Meanwhile, the guy in accounting who has a gambling habit wants to bypass your egress filtering to get out to those gambling sites. He's going to find a way to do it. He's got motivation. He's got time. Sysadmins, they have time to really do what they want in their network. I'm a sysadmin. There was times when I made those bad judgment calls to make life easier for me. And bad guys in general, they just have the time. They're not limited by that 40, 80 hours that we are. And some woes of penetration testing, some things that have been brought to light since in the last 6 months. Report writing, and I'm not talking about those terrible reports we've all heard stories about where somebody goes and they run a vulnerability scan, stamp their logo on it, here you go. If you're on the receiving end of one of those, you have every reason to be furious with this industry. It's not acceptable. So if you write out a real report, you know that it takes work, it takes time, and there's a lot of details. We're going to that here in a little bit. Compliance-driven difficulties. And what I mean by that is that we have those clients that just want to get a pen test. They want it cheap, they want it quick, they want to fill the check mark in the box. They are not interested in necessarily hearing all that you have to say, and in many cases they don't really want you there in the first place. And scoping is still an issue. 2013, it's still an issue. And maybe that's the client's fault. They don't really understand why we're there, why we're testing, or maybe that's our fault. We weren't clear or didn't explain, or they want to sneak in a URL and scope creep begins to happen, or whatever reason, it's still a problem, and we still see it a lot. And it makes pen testing unfun at times. The consultant life, if you're a consultant, in security or just in general, you can relate to this, that you're hired on as the expert. You go in, you bring advice, you bring in what you know, and there's always that admin or that guy out there that's questioning your work, that wants to go back behind you and look at everything and inspect everything, and then argue with you, and wants to make an argument that, ignore the fact that you got domain admin because of the password, and more focus on, well, you rated this critical and not high, and it should really be a high for this reason. You're just constantly being watched and shadowed and questioned, and it's not always that that fun and glory that I initially dreamed of. But I made it. I'm a penetration tester full time, and that's what I go and I tell people and I explain to them, yeah, I'm a penetration tester. Call up my mom, hey mom, I'm a penetration tester, but mom doesn't get it. She gets a whole other concept, right?
Did she introduce you as a professional penetrator yet?
Not yet. That has not happened. No, mom. So I break it down for her, and I say, no, mom, really, I'm an ethical hacker. That's what I do. But mom still doesn't get it, right? And so I break it down further, and I explain, no, this is what I do. And if it's a friend or a stranger or whoever, the typical response I get is, wow, I didn't even know that position existed. I didn't even know that you could do a career in that. And I think that's a problem. We should be reaching out to the general population as an industry, educating them that we're out here, we're doing hacking, not what you see in the news, but we're exploiting things, we're making things more secure, here's what we're doing, and share those innovations or inventions or whatever we're coming up with. We need to get that out to the general population. But a bigger problem than the general population not getting it, is that our clients aren't always getting it. So we spoke about report writing and how painful it is, but we really need to be passionate when we're writing out these reports, because the report is what the client has to bridge the sort of gap to get them through the next year. Maybe they're just doing it for compliance purposes, but it's what we have to give them to show them what was tested, how it was tested, and what was found, and why what was found is a problem. So we're hired on as an expert, and my advice is, if you're putting something in the report, really understand what it is you're putting in the report so that you can explain it back to the client. If it's SQL injection, be able to explain why SQL injection is a problem, how it's remediated, and be able to give them specific business impact. Business impact shouldn't be a general statement, but it should be focused around their business. These assets are at risk because of this vulnerability that we were able to exploit. And again, we see those compliance versus security, and we get those clients that, well, I just want to get this in, I just want to get the checkbox filled and moved on, and that's fine. But I still think there's some onus on us to step up and say, yes, we'll help you, we'll get you compliant, but there's really some other things that we need to look at in your environment. And certainly, we all, and I know I'm beating a dead horse in this room, we all know, we've all seen compliance isn't equal to security, but we need to still get that message out to our clients, because many of them that I've come across aren't getting it. Buzzwords, speaking of beating a dead horse, we have a tendency to use buzzwords in this industry, and I don't personally have any beef with buzzwords. If you're going to use them, but I really just recommend just being clear about what you're communicating to your clients. I've been on the receiving end where a consultant comes in, they drop a buzzword, and all of a sudden my management is looking at solving solutions for the buzzword that they just dropped, and we don't have a basic patching policy in place. It happens all the time, so if you're speaking to your clients, you need to communicate with clarity and with words that just are easily defined to what you really mean. Buzzwords, the definitions tend to get a little vague. And I'm going to shift gears just a little bit and speak back to more specifically the newcomers or those interested in becoming a penetration tester, because I think it first has to start with a mindset. And we all know that the hacking mindset takes something, manipulate it, get it to do something it was never intended to do. Versus the script kiddie mindset where you just want to go in and you just want to click and pwn and you want to take over the world. You're going to burn out really quickly as a full-time penetration tester if you're just interested in walking in and destroying the network and walking out. Here's an example of that hacking mindset. This was a parking meter. I slide my credit card in and the thing reboots, which kind of interesting, not that big a deal. But when it comes back up, it's clearly a Windows XP image, and what I didn't capture here is like a WordPad icon and the Windows Media Player icon. And if that doesn't get like the hacking juices inside you just flowing and moving, then maybe this industry isn't necessarily for you. If you're going to get in this industry, it changes quickly. All right, if you've gone to any of the speakers here who spoke last year, they've probably changed up their talk a bit, even from last year, or things have changed, or what worked last year doesn't work this year. Certainly there's the unpatched environments out there, the exceptions, but it's changing, and in order to participate and grow in this industry, you have to have an avenue to grow and expand your skills. Fortunately, we have virtualization, VirtualBox, VMware, Microsoft has a virtual machine. There's plenty of options out there to build your home lab. A lot of hacking tools come out in VMware images. There's exploitable VMs out there that you can learn from, and even if VM's not a good option for you, you can pick up hardware pretty cheap almost anywhere. You know, grab Aunt Betsy's Windows XP machine because she went out and got herself a brand new Surface or whatever. So training opportunities, these 3 vendors I put up here are vendors that I can vouch for, that I've had training with. I think they do a great job. There's many vendors out there. Go out, find them. My only caveat is when you seek out a vendor, seek out that they are who they say they are, that they're using their own material. It seems funny that we have to talk about that, but we do. So really vet those out and make sure that you're paying for good quality content. College, if you're still a student and interested in getting penetration testing, that's great, because we're seeing more universities pick up security. We're seeing information assurance degrees pop up all over the place, and they're starting to bring it into the collegiate curriculum. Ed Scotus mentioned yesterday in his talk the CTF that he does for college students. There's hundreds of CTFs out there for college students, even high school students. And if you have an opportunity, I really recommend checking out the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. They're held regionally. There's probably one close to you. Go out and volunteer. You can volunteer for Red Team, hack up a bunch of college kids, or White Team, and check them out. It's a really cool opportunity to see what the college age and generation is learning. Conferences, why are we all here? Networking, right? We get to meet people. We get to meet these famous people in the security industry, but more than that, conferences, and not just DerbyCon, but many conferences provide material archives for free, so it gives you an opportunity to go out, download those, learn from the latest trends, learn from the latest speakers of what's coming out. My brain froze there, sorry. And when we go to the conferences, you get to meet a lot of these security heroes. I'm sorry, it's a corny title, but it's what I came up with. But there's guys here that are making, and girls, that are making a great difference. They're doing authentic work. They're providing code out there. They're providing tools, and they're giving it back out to the communities for free. There's whole companies that are doing this. Here's a few of my favorites that I follow on Twitter. Twitter's my sort of avenue of choice, but you can grab IRC or Reddit or LinkedIn. I mean, people are all over the place and they're accessible. So reach out to people while you're here. Take opportunity to talk to these people. Don't get bit by squirrels in this industry. And what I mean by that is do your own work. And it's sad that 2013, we have to have a slide that talks about doing your own work. But unfortunately, You know, that little word plagiarism we probably all learned around junior high is a problem in the industry. And if you're not familiar with attrition.org, Jericho and team have put together an amazing set of articles on people that are just you know, selling snake oil. They're fakes in the industry, charlatans, and it's sad that that's going on. And it's a simple concept that we have to talk about. If you're going to use somebody else's work, give them credit. Give source back to it. It just really makes you look foolish when you get called out for doing, you know, copying somebody else's work and calling it your own, and trying to make that your claim to fame. And it's bad for the community, right? It's not really encouraging people to put out work if you're just going to steal it and use it and abuse it. So I still encourage, though, to get back out there. Give to the community, find ways to do it. You don't have to be a developer. I'm not a developer by any sense. I've tried to learn Python several times now, but you know, look at these guys doing things in the community, and look at things that you can do. You can write documentation. You can write an article. Here's how you do this. Here's what this tool does. You can work on support tickets. You can learn code and do your own code. There's so many opportunities to give back to the community, and that's what makes it such a great community, what makes everybody so approachable. And then before I close out, I want to circle back to this picture, because I think if you're giving a perspective, it's important to really focus on why it is we do what we do. For me personally, you know, is it about hacking? Is it about compliance? Is it about doing something cool? You know, maybe all those things factor into it, but for me personally, it's really just making the world a better place, right? My grandma goes on to see Facebook, see this picture. I like to know that I'm trying to make the world a better place, so it's a safe avenue for her to do that. When he grows up and does his own thing on the internet or connects to the world, I hope that I've made it a safer place to do that. So that's really all I got. So I can take a couple questions, or you can reach out to me on Twitter. Thank you.